There was only one lapel pin tonight that said math, and it belonged to Andrew Yang. Standing by with Chris Hayes.
Thank you, Brian. There was a long exchange tonight on the universal basic income and automation, which has been sort of a core theme of your campaign. You talk a lot about automation, but I'm not convinced that the kind of apocalypse you paint is really coming, right? We've had all kinds of automation revolutions. Like, why should people be focusing on that when there are so many other issues around the institutional arrangements and the minimum wage and labor unions and the strength of workers that seem like they're as important as automation?
Well, you certainly shouldn't take my word for it. The Obama White House, MIT, McKinsey, Bain all project that between 20 and 30% of American jobs are going to be lost to automation over the next 10 to 20 years. And we already automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs here in Ohio and Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Iowa. And if that list of states sounds familiar, those are the same states that Donald Trump needed to win and did win. There's a straight line up between the adoption of industrial robots in a voting area and the movement towards Trump in that area.
There was a lot of discussion tonight about foreign policy, and obviously Democrats, I think, feel united in condemning Donald Trump. But one of the things I think you've seen is a critique that the guy doesn't know what he's doing, he's unprepared, and he is insufficiently prepared with his resume to conduct world affairs. When someone thinks, well, Andrew Yang is going to be the president sitting on the phone with Erdogan, like, why should they trust that you should be the person doing that?
Well, I think people recognize that foreign policy and being commander-in-chief often revolves around your judgment and leadership, and people get a sense of what you would do in that chair.
But doesn't experience matter too?
You know, another aspect of what's happening in foreign policy, and we can see it with Russian hacking of our democracy, the true threats of the 21st century include cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, things that, frankly, we're going to need the government to play catch-up in technology and innovation, and that's what I bring to the table as commander-in-chief.
All right, Andrew Yang, good to see you.
Good to see you, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Back to you guys in New York, Brian.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to take a break.
Welcome back. We are live in Ohio after the 4th Democratic presidential debate. Let's bring in businessman and presidential hopeful Andrew Yang, fresh off the stage. How do you feel?
I feel great. The debate went tremendously well in terms of talking about our core issues, the fact that we're automating away the most common jobs in the economy, including hundreds of thousands right here in Ohio, 4 million throughout the Midwest, and that we need to move our economy forward if we're going to have any chance of coming together.
I got to ask you about one of the more controversial moments you had tonight. When you talked about the legalization of some opioids, that struck a lot of people as an interesting thing to say. What exactly do you mean by that? Let's clarify first.
I was in Iowa, and a high school student, senior, told me that his classmates had fentanyl patches on their arms already. They were addicted, and what could we do? And this really stuck with me. So I looked into it and said, okay, what have other countries done in this situation? And some of them have had massive successes with decriminalization of opiates for personal use. So not if you sell, not if you're a dealer or a but if you have opiates that you're addicted to and you're using them and we catch you, we take the drugs away, yes, but then we refer you to treatment and not a prison cell. This has had a massive effect on reducing both overdose deaths and substance abuse overall in other countries where it's been tried.
Okay, so when you say it would be criminalized, would they be then allowed to go on? Is there some form of the drug that you would allow to be legalized for people to purchase? Say if they are a heroin addict and say, this is the life I choose to live, are you saying they should have access to that?
Well, there's a difference between decriminalization and lack of regulation. There are a lot of things that are legal in this country that we still regulate. No, alcohol and tobacco are obvious examples.
But heroin is obviously very different than that.
Yeah, and so heroin should be illegal, but we don't actually prosecute you.
Pursue criminal charges.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And that is actually happening in some communities around the country, including here in Ohio, where when the police catch you with some of these opiates, they actually are already choosing not to prosecute you. So we just need to free up our authorities to focus their resources in the way that would serve the community best.
Do you worry that that takes away some of the deterrent effect of following criminal laws in cases like this? You talked about safe injection sites as well, and we have talked to some cities that are adamantly fighting that. They don't feel like it's going to be the best situation for people that are constantly being revived. There's some taxpayer money that gets, tied up in underwriting these kinds of things, and they don't think that's a good use of money to allow people, even if it's their own personal choice, to essentially kill themselves.
Well, they're killing themselves now, Shannon, and safe injection sites will actually save lives, because the truth is when someone hits rock bottom in one of these addiction spirals, often there is no coming back. And so we need to get people the help that they need. And so if someone's a true addict, instead of returning them home where they're just going to do something quite possibly self-destructive or even lethal, we need to bring them someplace where they can be monitored and actually be able to service the addiction in a way that does not leave them in a place of no return.
But do you worry that that's the kind of life that they would have if they know there's a safe place they can go and shoot up, they have access to these drugs, they're not going to be prosecuted for them, that they essentially, you are allowing them to be on that spiral with no hope of recovery?
You know, the reality is that our communities are struggling with this right now, and the criminal law as deterrent is not working. We have to face facts. 8 Americans are dying of drug overdoses every hour right now in this society. So whatever we're doing right now is not working. And this is a disease that the government had a hand in creating. And so saying it's on the individual to recover from addiction, when we know these addictions are life-destroying, it's very, very hard to come back. We need to give people a fighting chance. And when other countries have tried this, they've seen reductions in both use and abuse and overdoses.
Well, we know there are no easy answers. And there was a lot of discussion tonight about holding the drug companies not only civilly liable, but criminally potentially as well. Is that something that you would support for the executives? Do you think they need to go to jail?
I do. You know, the fact is that Americans who haven't had a hand in killing tens of thousands of Americans are in jail right now for much lesser crimes than many of these executives are guilty of.
Okay, Andrew Yang, always an interesting conversation, and to have you on the stage. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you, Shannon. It's great to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, Bernie Sanders may be picking up some key endorsements after he returned to the stage tonight after suffering a heart attack.